So nice to meet you. So many familiar faces and lots of new faces was making me very happy. So over 300 people have signed up to be part of this conversation tonight, which is a bit crazy. So I'm hoping our numbers will keep rising up as we give people time to arrive and settle in. So this conversation tonight is going to be a little bit different than how I would normally give talks or host sessions. And I've made that decision very intentionally because I wanted this conversation to feel different. I wanted it to feel like a conversation. And I wanted it to be as real and as kind of connected and intimate as is possible when we are joining in from France and Utah and all the countries in between. So I have prepared some stories that I want to share with you around our theme of, what is the reality of building a feminist business and life and way of working, way of being in the world. And I hope that you can join in, you can ask questions. So to begin, I would love to get a sense of kind of who's here and why you're here. So I'd love if you can put in the chat just why you wanted to be part of tonight's conversation. What has made you decide to spend your International Women's Day evening with me and Kim? Need some confidence in myself. Brownie points for going first, Emma, and being honest. Here to listen to your inspiring words. Oh, thank you, Karen. So happy you're here. I love your brand, ethos, honesty, and everything you're about. Oh, thank you. I've been feeling anxious about where I'm going. Hanging out with Upfront always makes me feel clearer, to feel inspired, want to find out more, because I want to question all the workplace structures that we have and apply feminine perspective, how to start a feminine queer leadership consultancy, curiosity on the topic. Amazing. Want to feel positivity, be surrounded by good people. So one of the tools that we love to use at Upfront is something called a +1. And it's very easy. The idea is you literally write a +1 in the chat. Thank you, Tess. When you hear something that lands with you, something that you feel excited about, inspired by, motivated by, something that really lands with you. So I would love you to put a +1 in the chat if you are kind of new to Upfront, if this is your kind of, you're here to find out more. So fun, so many new people. Welcome, welcome. And can I get a +1 if you are a Bond alumni, Global Bond member, already an active member in our community? Lou, Emma, Susan, Rosa, Sarah, and Taras. There's lots of you here too. Beautiful. So I'm not going to spend too long talking about me and Upfront. I'm going to kind of go on the assumption that you're familiar with that, but just a quick kind of headline summary is Upfront is all about changing confidence. We talk about this idea of building a confidence revolution because we want to change how women and non-binary people understand how to cultivate their own confidence and the confidence of the people around them. And so we're on a mission to support 1 million people. I founded Upfront in 2016 by accident because I was so frustrated often being the only woman speaker on conference stages. So what started as a campaign, if you like, where I would put a big red sofa on stage with me for people who had stage fright to sit on that sofa and get used to being on the stage, has now, over the years of prototyping and testing, became this beautiful and brilliant thing that is Upfront. We are a team of 9. We have global impact. Our last bond, so that a bond is our 6-week online program. Each cohort is called a bond, which is the collective noun for a group of women. And so bond number 5, big love to all the bond fivers in the house. We welcomed 515 women and non-binary folks from 25 different countries. And the average increase in confidence was 109%. So we have had thousands of graduates. We work with a lot of businesses across the private, public and third sector. So organizations from Nike right through to Citizens Advice, Sainsbury's and tech startups will enroll their teams on the bond program. Over 90% of our business clients always come back because they see the product has such an impact. We know that bonders are more likely to apply for leadership positions. The average salary increase of a bonder is 46%. So what we are doing really works. And I went full time and really committed to Upfront in April 2021. So it's been a very steep growth curve. We recently just passed our £1 million revenue mark, which was a big milestone to celebrate. Bond 7 is in the diary. Bond 7 is starting in June. I know we've got lots of Bond 7 folks in the house as well. Big love to you. And so International Women's Day is kind of like our Christmas Day being an organisation, because this is what we work on all day, every day, always. But I've sensed a shift in the mood this year, and I'm so curious, would love to hear from you in the chat around how you felt about International Women's Day this year, because I can sense much more anger, frustration, and despair, because everywhere we look, women's rights are being compromised, are being taken away. So Kate saying felt flat, Karen saying it felt performative. So that's why I wanted to have this conversation tonight, and I've not prepared a script, I've not prepared slides. I just wanted to be together with you and to have an open conversation, because on to a day like today, we're bombarded with all these messages, and so many of them are empty promises. Even more of them are lies. Companies saying that they love and support women, yet they do not pay their women fairly. Yet they discriminate against women who are pregnant. They discriminate against women who are Black or brown. And we know this because the data is telling us this all the time, over and over and over again. And I hope that the kind of setting of this conversation is also challenging the idea of kind of being a leader in this space, because that is what I am. That is kind of where we're at. And I'm, I want to be intentional to say clearly that yes, I'm a leader, but I'm also not faultless. I am a flawed human being, the same as everybody else in this room. I have really big dreams and really big ambitions, and I have hopes and fears and worries and all those things. And that all comes together to create the products, the initiatives, the campaigns, the programs that we run at Upfront. Everything we build at Upfront it's a prototype. It's a way for us to try and create the world that we want to live in. I really love this idea of a business being a prototype of the change you want to see in the world. And that's why we opened up this conversation to all genders. If there's any men in the room, I'd love to see a +1 in the chat, because we are happy that you're here. Just catching up with the comments. Feels performative. Community is important. The IWD brand is owned by a group of corporations. Of course it is. Does not surprise me. So The first thing I wanted to touch on is this premise of changing confidence. Like, what does that mean? Why am I so obsessed with this idea of changing confidence? And really importantly, changing confidence, not women. So we are being very explicit about the fact that we do not ever want to promote the idea that women or non-binary people need to change themselves. We are centering our work on the idea that the system is actually working as it was intended to. It is working as it was designed to. And that system is designed to keep women, queer people, Black and brown people, poor people, underrepresented groups, minorities, small. It is designed to keep the status quo protected and unchallenged. And I believe that confidence is a key piece to changing that system, because it sits right at the intersection of how do we change systems and culture through policy, through systems change, through teams, through leadership, through culture, through how we parent, and how do I change myself? How do I change my mindset, my behavior, how I show up in the world? And we are doing both of those things at the same time. We're sitting right in the middle of that Venn diagram. And so up front is looking directly at the warped relationship that most of us have with confidence. Most of us who have been brought up as women and girls learn from a very, very, very early age that it is in your best interest to stay quiet and to stay small. And we are taught that the thing we must avoid at all costs is being arrogant, is being too big for our boots. And that's what we're changing. We're changing confidence from being something that we sneer at or we're afraid of or we're intimidated by to something that we love and celebrate and explore and cultivate in each other and create through community. And the consequences of that are so far reaching. You know, often people will say to me, but who is this for? Like, who is the target audience for the bond, for Upfront? And I'll say, well, there isn't one really, because I don't care where you work. I don't care what your job is. I don't care how much money you earn. I don't care if you're in a leadership position or not, or what age you are. I care about your values, how you want to show up in the world, and how I can help you find the confidence that you have always had, but somebody or something has taken it away. And so that means on any given bond, we are working with managing directors, chief execs, right through to apprentices, interns and nurses at the NHS, primary school teachers, lawyers, engineers from NASA, and every single occupation in between. And we all have this deep relationship in common with our confidence. And it's really complex and nuanced. And every single bond, my mind is blown yet again, even when I think it can't be blown anymore, by the complexity and the nuance of how the world teaches us to think about our power, how the world teaches us to think about what we are capable of, who the world gives permission to. Who is the world giving permission to be confident to? And so I wanted to talk to you about this notion of feminist leadership and like how I'm thinking about what that is and what that means. Because I guess we've seen all these memes today of girl power and like women CEOs and girl boss. It's not always helpful, is it? Because often those messages are coming from and aimed at white, straight, middle-class women. And I say that as a white, straight woman who now lives a middle-class lifestyle, even though I grew up in a working class town and environment. But I am working hard all the time to understand what my place in that conversation is, and what is a feminist leader? What does feminist leadership look and sound like? And I think one of the key themes for me is about intentionality. Doing things with intention, making decisions with intention, deciding what the trade-offs are, deciding how hard you're willing to work, what fights you want to fight with intention. I think it's also about amplifying people who have less power than you, and doing that in a way that is genuine and sincere. I also think it's about knowing when to step aside, when to step down, when to say, this conversation is not my conversation to have. And I think it's about saying, I don't know, regularly, often, to yourself, to your team, to the wider world. Admitting that you don't know all the answers. Admitting that I've never thought of that before. I'm going to go and think about it or find out. I think it's about listening more than talking often in some scenarios, not always, but often it's about listening more than talking. It's about acknowledging the power that you have and being as transparent as you can be about where that power has come from, how that power has benefited you, how that power might affect the scenario you're in, the conversations you're having. So, an example of that is if I am going to be put on a pedestal as a socially motivated entrepreneur who's successful in this way or that way, I am always going to acknowledge my whiteness in that context, because my whiteness has made that journey drastically easier than that journey would have or could have or might have been for a woman who is my peer, who has dark skin, black skin, brown skin. And, power is multifaceted. And so it's about digging deep and thinking about how that power shows up in different contexts. Highlighting mistakes you've made. I think I've been doing that more recently, and my heart has been warmed by how you've responded, responding really positively. Thank you for being honest. Thank you for letting us in. Thank you for normalizing these things, because I think the internet in particular makes it very difficult, because we are comparing our shitty first draft to someone else's shiny showreel. And that can be really hard, especially if you are on a journey with confidence, as I am, as we all are and always will be. And then the other big piece of this conversation is community. And what does it actually mean and look like to create a genuine community? And I think the very short answer to that is it's really fucking hard work. A lot of hard work over a long, long time. It is still wild to me that up until 2021, Upfront was just me and Kim. And I think, Kim, did you come back? I think she moved. I hope she's still here. And now we have this amazing team, and our product has evolved in so many ways, because listening to our bonders and our community is a core part of how we operate. So every single bond, we get lots of feedback. We say what worked, what didn't work, and then we make changes, and it gets better and better every time. And so now we're at a stage where we've got product market fit with our bond. We know that it works. We know that it gets the results that we are saying it does. And now it's like, what's our next product going to be? You know, that's very much where we're at. It's like, what is our, and it's not going to be another bond, because the bond will always be the bond, but what is the next product? What will that look like? Will it be an app? Will it be some sort of digital tool? And our team has evolved in that we now have Sarah, our brilliant design lead. So I think our brand has leveled up in lots of ways that makes me feel really proud, because Sarah is so incredibly talented. We measure product market fit by the growth in the product and the scale of the impact and the scale of our reach. And, you know, I think also we have a really, really clear idea and strategy on the problem the bond solves, who it's for in businesses, who pays for it, what is the impact. You know, we've prototyped it and tested it so much over the years that all that's in a really solid place. So that's how we think about product market fit. And I think the other thing that I've been thinking about a lot when it comes to community is this idea of having like a community for women, like a women's only space. And I've realized that through the work that I do with Casey Robinson, our anti-racism coach, that nobody can ever stand up and say, I've built a community for women. Nobody can say I've built a community for women and non-binary people, because women and non-binary people are not an homogenous group. There is so much complexity and nuance within those groups. And so what I can say is that I am building and have built a brave space. And I know that I communicate that space in a way that I hope people know what to expect. So if you are a Black woman, I would hope through conversations with me and our podcast and our content that you know what to expect when you show up to a community that is founded by a white woman. You know, if you are a non-binary person, you know, I'll say very explicitly, like, you're probably not going to see yourself reflected a whole bunch in this product or in this community, because I am a straight white woman and the product has come from me. But I can guarantee that you will be welcomed and you will be supported. And I think it's really right that these things are recognized, so that different women, different non-binary people have the agency to choose if they want to show up or not. And that's never something for me to decide. It's something for me to signpost. And so it's like leaning into being as clear and as articulate as we can be on what different people from with different intersectionalities, with different characteristics, can expect when they're part of our community. And we recently did a really fun thing just towards the end of it, just before Christmas, where we had our first ever Global Bond town hall event. And so we did a big survey, we did focus groups, and this was really the first time ever that we had properly got data from our Global Bond community to say, like, tell us. And so many of you are here, like, tell me what's working, what's not working, why do you show up, why do you love it, what difference does it make to your life, what do you want more of, what do you want less of? And it was absolutely brilliant, one of the best pieces of work we did last year, because we learned so much about what makes upfront, what upfront's power is, what our points of differentiation are. And, you know, some of those things where the reasons that people choose upfront, that keep showing up in upfront over years and years, is because of the shared values. It's because I've made our values so explicit, and I'm trying my best to live those values. And when I don't, to reflect, to apologize, to learn. People show up because they tell us, like, it's conversations. They're having conversations in our community they can't have anywhere else. that presentation was not recorded, Joe, but you can see the slides, and they are, if you ping me a note, I can send you them. Let's see, was there a moment when you realized you were trying to change yourself that led to you to change confidence? What did that feel like? I mean, I think that's like a very articulate way of describing what this whole journey is and always will be, right? It's like, because I think that work is never done. It's like when my son, who's 5, will be like, why are you putting makeup on your face? Why do you always put makeup on your face when you have to go and do a call? I'm like, why is that? Because I'm trying to change myself, because, you know, it's like we could have a whole conversation about makeup or body positivity, or, you know, I think it's never ending, because we live in a patriarchal society that wants to control and suppress women. Like, that is unquestionable. And so there's always some new way that we're being tricked into thinking we have to change ourselves, that we have to be thinner, that we have to be smarter, we have to be funnier, we have to have bigger boobs, smaller boobs, high heels, no heels, fake eyelashes, no, I don't know, you know, it's just, there's $1 billion industries that exist on this premise of thinking, making women believe they need to change themselves to be accepted, to belong, to feel safe. So that's a journey that I'm always on, like, and there's always more to learn and more to explore. And I think that's part of what I want to create in the bond and in these conversations, is a place to explore those things, is a place to have those conversations. It's almost like it's a playground for your confidence. It's a playground for you to practice showing up more as yourself. Because ultimately that's what confidence is. It's trusting yourself to be more of yourself. Like, the more true you can be to who you are, the better you will feel, the more successful you will be, you know, however that looks. Lots of +1s coming through for that. Yes. So, let me just check my phone, because I want to make sure Kim is still. Kim, you're still here.
I'm here. I'm here.
I just couldn't see you. I don't like it when I can't see you. Okay. So I asked you to send me questions in advance, and some of you did, which was super cool. So we're going to talk through some of them, and I know some of you have been popping questions in as we go, so hopefully Kim's taking a wee note of some of them. Here's one. How do you decide what to prioritize? Oh, it's really hard. How do we decide what to prioritize? So I think something that is hard for us is and I think for all businesses probably to some extent, is there is so much opportunity because the problem's so fucking huge. So every day there's a new campaign idea, a new product idea. Can we have a bond for kids? Can we have a bond for teenagers? Can we have an app for men? Can we have a Lauren in your ears app? I mean, it's just never ending, endless. And it is hard for me because I'm an entrepreneur. I'm super creative. I'm a designer. I get really excited about ideas. I love starting things. I love making things out of nothing. And so something that I first heard this from Sharmadean Reid, who runs the Stack World. It's another feminist business that I think is brilliant. And she talked about whenever she found herself getting that itch to start a new thing, she would say, okay, you can do it, but you need to do it within your business. You need to keep it within this brand. You're not going over there to start some random new thing. And so now I channel that into upfront. So it's like, now we have our podcast. So there's scope for me to play in there. I can do podcasts on my own. I can bring in guests. We can have group conversations. You know, I'm like, let's do something on International Women's Day. And I just invented this, like just made up this idea of like, let's have something that feels more intimate, more together. And so that's kind of how I manage it for me personally. And I think from a business perspective, because we have one flagship product, it is simpler in that we know we will deliver one public bond, every single year. So we have one public bond every summer. Bond 7 starts in June. Bond 6 was last June. I think we've had over 100 people already sign up for Bond 7, which is brilliant. And then we know all during the year we're running private bonds. And that's the exact same experience that you have on our public bond, but it's closed just for organizations. And so that's our focus. Our focus is one public bond a year that is phenomenal and brilliant and powerful and successful. And we want to have maybe 4, 5 private bonds over the year. And Joanna saying, I struggled to gracefully stand up for myself. I was at an event last night and just awkwardly smiled when 2 separate old men made misogynistic comments. I'm sorry that happened, Joanna. And I think it's hard because I think it would be naive for me to say, and I probably would have said this 2 years ago. It would be naive of me to say, like, you should have said something and you have to stand up and always speak. But it's like, it's so much about the context. And ultimately what is most important is your safety and your well-being. So if you have energy in that moment to say, do not speak to me like that, I don't tolerate that language, whatever that means for you, then that's okay. If you do not, that's also okay. I think if you are a white person, I do think we have a much, much deeper responsibility to speak up in the moment, to say something when we witness prejudice and bias and racism and sexism and ageism and homophobia and all the isms that we see. But I also think your energy is precious. And if we responded to every single time we see some, if you responded to every single comment, we would get nothing done because we'd be arguing with men called Barry on the internet all day. I'm so sorry if there's a man called Barry here. But it's tricky. And I think what I would suggest is to rehearse maybe 1 or 2 sentences, practice them, get used to how the words feel in your mouth. Maybe you want to say them out loud in the shower. And the one that I have practiced and rehearsed and will always say, I say it sometimes without even thinking about it too much because I've thought about it and practiced it so much, which is the classic, you pretend you didn't hear them. And you'll say, I'm sorry, did you just say, you can say, did you just say and repeat it back to them? Or I'm sorry, I misheard you. Can you say that again? And just by asking them to say it again, usually they will, or definitely the other people in the room will notice that what they said wasn't okay. So that is a good one to always have up your sleeve. Something else I said I would talk about was how our urgency for gender equity can harm other women. And so I think the biggest piece of that comes back to race again, where there is a very real thing called white urgency, where white people, including me, have this urgency to, well, I'm going to fix it. I know how to make it better, and I'm going to build this thing, start this campaign, do this. And often those things are not helpful because they are too single focused. So they end up serving your agenda or other people who look like you's agenda, which isn't helping the people, everybody, helping as many people as we can. And it also means there's a huge danger that we are going to forget about the legacies and the absolutely incredible work that has been done for hundreds of years before us, you know, specifically from Black and brown activists who have been sowing the seeds and building the studies and the theories of change and the bodies of literature and the language that is much of which is now mainstream around how change happens, how social movements happen, how we can make progress. And so this has been a big part of my journey recently over the last kind of 1 and 2 years, because the designer in me, the entrepreneur in me, wants to do stuff. Like I am, ask my team, my friends, my family, like I am, let's do it right now. Like such a bias towards action. You want something done, I am the woman to ask. And that partly it's my personality, but mostly it's my design training. You know, when you go to art school, you get graded on your ability to ship shitty first drafts, to share things that aren't finished, to get feedback, to prototype, to move on. That's what your job as a designer is, to make things real that don't exist in the world. And so I felt a big shift in that for me, a very, I don't know if slowing down is the right word. The right word is probably grace, which is a beautiful segue into our conference. Did you know we were having a conference? May have mentioned it a couple of times. And that theme came from grace being my word of the year last year and this year, like this idea of like giving yourself grace as you grow and learn and feel uncomfortable and all those things. And I know there's lots of designers in the room, so big love to all my fellow designers and prototypers. But yeah, our conference theme is activating grace in a world on fire. And I almost feel like this International Women's Day has been the perfect symbol of that, because we're expected to be like, happy Women's Day and the world's on fire. It's like, no, we're not doing that. So what are we doing? You know, like what does that look like to still show up and to still take action in community and confidence and leadership? And so that's what we're going to be really digging into on Saturday. Oh my God, as if it's only on Saturday. It's absolutely mental. It's been a wild ride. Well, we'll write a whole book on what it's like to build your first conference when you're a tiny team. So yeah, give me a +1 in the chat if you are coming on Saturday or if you are joining remotely. Yay, it's going to be so awesome. So it's in Glasgow on Saturday. Absolutely would love you to come to Glasgow, but if you cannot come to Glasgow, we have a very fancy live stream and you can watch from the comfort of your living room in your pajamas. And if you're not free on Saturday, you can watch the replay for 60 days. So make sure to check that out if you haven't already got your ticket. I don't know if I'm going to have time to, because I want to also take some of your questions. So someone asked me to talk about rejection. Yes, Joanna, if it's your daughter's birthday, get the replay. We have sponsorship from Iron Brew and Tunnock's Tea Cake, and I cannot tell you how excited I am about that. So someone asked me, can you talk about your relationship with rejection, you know, overcoming setbacks? And I think this is a really important thing to talk about because it's such a consistent part of my daily routine. Like I am rejected on a daily basis, pretty much without fail. Because I think it's part of being an entrepreneur. It's part of running a business. And it's also part of lots of other occupations and different ways that people show up in the world. And so I think it's like, how do you learn to be with rejection more skillfully? And I love the story of Stacey Abrams, in the States. So she lost this a couple of years ago. She went for governor and lost the race. If you don't know Stacey Abrams, you look her up and you're in for a treat. She's a phenomenal leader. And so she lost the race, but she kept moving. So she basically disappeared for 10 days after it was all over the press that she'd lost. And she assessed her options. Then she got lots of critique because she didn't run for Senate. Then she came out and decided and announced that she wanted to be vice president. And so people just critiqued her even more. Then she decided to set up an organization to change voter oppression. So she literally went to the root of the problem, turned lemons into lemonade in a way that was remarkable and bold for women, bold for Black women, stood up and said, okay, that didn't work out. And when things don't work out, we're taught to go down the way. It's like, that didn't work out, so you need to go back down, get back in the elevator, because you didn't work. You don't belong here. And she said, no, fuck that. I'm going up. And she pressed up and decided to set her sights on being vice president. And so that wee story that I learned on a podcast from a company called Hello 7, who have a cool podcast. It's all about money. And I learned so much about rejection from that little story, because the steps you can see are, so it's firstly like acknowledging that you are, the reason it hurts so bad is you're centering the other person's judgment. So it's like, I didn't get that dream job and it feels shit because now I think that this person who runs this organization doesn't like me, doesn't think I'm good enough. So you're centering the other person, not yourself. And you feel sad, feel angry, feel frustrated, feel hurt. But then you have to shift the focus back to yourself, to your own desire. Yes, Emma, we need a t-shirt. Fuck that, I'm going up. I did like that. Shift the focus back to yourself, to your desire and your intention. And then you listen to the feedback again and you filter it through a sieve and you find the gold. And you decide what bits of that feedback you listen to and what bits of that feedback you reject. And you're asking yourself questions like, who am I? What is it I want? What would I do differently if I had this opportunity again? And what do I want to try next? And now the way I look at it is, if I am not getting people saying no to me, then I am not doing my job properly, because I'm not aiming high enough. So when I try, I want to have my own TV show. I do want to have that. Kim's like, oh God, there's no time. Not right now, but one day. Now, I know that if I tried to pitch that right now, probably lots of people would say no to me, because that feels really big, like really far away, like out of my league. But I want to be doing that. I want to be getting those no's, because that is me on the path to getting the yes. You always like set yourself a challenge, like how many no's can you gather? How many no's can you get? So that's how I think about rejection. I think about it as a muscle to be strengthened. If people are saying yes to you all the time, you're playing it too safe. You're in your comfort zone. And that's fine for a bit, but you want to spend some time stretching outside of that. And when you can release yourself from that judgment, the rejection feels neutral, and it's super hard. Like Kim will tell you, some days it's like, I have had 5 meetings and they were all shit and they were all saying no and making excuses, and I get angry and upset, and then I have to have a talk to myself. It's nothing to do with me. It's got nothing to do with Upfront. It's got nothing to do with our mission. It's got everything to do with them. And now they've said no, I can close the email and go find 10 people that are going to say yes. And that's what I do. And so I'm going to wrap up, and then hopefully we can hear from some of you. I promised I'd share like where I'm at, what I'm working on, what feels hard and what feels good. So where I'm at, I think there's kind of three main themes that are coming up in terms of where I'm at. And I think I'm in a period of stabilizing, because I took some time off in January and, you know, did the year compass, looked back at the year and was like, holy shit, no wonder I'm tired. Because all of our numbers have gone like this, like team, bonders, wider community online, revenue, all of it has grown really fast. And I immigrated to Sweden 2 years ago, where I cannot speak the language. We don't have any family and friends. I also have a kid, and anyone with children knows that as they grow up an extra month, it all changes again and all feels new, and you need to stabilize. So all of that's happening at the same time. And I've realized that, you know, I want to really like sit, you know, it's like get my toes in the sand. I want to like stabilize in this new place, because I also have a support system now that for a very long time I didn't really have. You know, I had my partner and I had friends, but I didn't really have a professional support system the way that I do now. So that feels really brilliant. I think the conference, of course, has been all consuming since the start of the year. You know, made an intentional choice to work at maximum plus capacity, which I think was a bold move, but one that I stand by, and I'm really happy that we did. Here's a question: could you share how to form a support network? Yes, I'll talk about that in a wee second, Elham. So what I'm working on, obviously we're working on the conference. We're also working on a new product, 2 new products. So one, a bond refresher course, because all of our gorgeous alumni are saying that they want something short and snappy they can go to reconnect with their bond experience. And we're working on a much smaller product for businesses, because some of the businesses that we meet, they're just not quite ready for a 6-week program. They might want like a 1-hour experience or a 2-hour experience. So we're working on what that might look like. I'm really working on my team. We've just recruited a new sales development representative, Shakira. We have a new intern, Aroma. And, you know, we're about to start a whole piece of work with Casey around our anti-racism practice as a team. And so that is something that I'm always working on, as well as my own individual work with Casey, which is about me as a leader being the best anti-racist leader I can be, but also just me personally as a white person, understanding how to cause the least harm that's possible. So that's like an ongoing thread. And then, of course, Bond 7. So we're getting excited for Bond 7. It'll be here really soon after the conference. So we're getting everything lined up, getting our online space all ready. And I guess what feels hard is that, and this is not new, but I think it's a cost of the passion and the motivation that I know so many of you be like, where does this come from? Are you a Duracell bunny? And I am a bit. I don't really know where that comes from, because I'm not allowed to drink coffee. But the downside of that is this is all consuming at times. You know, it is all of my life most of the time. And, you know, I'm getting a lot better at, I don't work evenings, I don't work weekends. I've started running, I've started swimming, you know, I'm doing things to look after me and have those clearer lines. But really I feel this is what I'm meant to do. This, you know, I'm where I'm supposed to be doing the work that I was born to do, which sounds very cheesy and grand, but that is how it feels at this moment in time. And I guess what also feels hard about that is to not judge myself for that, because like all of you, we're all made up of all the past versions of ourselves. We are made up of, 12-year-old Lauren who went to school where people used to write stuff about me on the toilet walls, or, 15-year-old Lauren when the boy never liked me back, or, you'll have these versions for you. But I'm working hard to like try and really connect and embrace all those different versions of myself. It's like I can still be that person, and also be the person who stands up on stage in front of 1,000 people and blows the audience away. I can be the mum that wants to just stay in my jammies all weekend with my son, and also host a conference for women all over the world in Glasgow on Saturday. Like I can be all those things. And I think working with my coach has made me realize that like the world doesn't like women to have multiple identities. We like to force ourselves and each other to be in nice, neat boxes. And so it feels hard, but also like I'm making progress on just kind of exploring all of that. What also feels hard is being patient. I think some of you have heard me talk about before. One of the reasons it took me such a long time to go full-time at Upfront was I was just really frustrated that it wasn't what it is now 5 years ago, because I'm so impatient. I'm like, why don't I have a team? And why don't I have an amazing product? And why don't I have this and this and this? Because I want it all yesterday. That's my nature. And now I want us to be where we'll be in 10 years, 5 years. I want that now. Of course I do. And so like navigating that, learning to be as patient as I am, and be as patient as I am ambitious, is a very kind of real thing that I'm always grappling with. And also the scale of the problem to be solved feels very hard. I think it being International Women's Day, we've all seen the stats floating around on rape cases are the highest they've ever been. The misogyny that is deeply rooted within our police force, the childcare cost. I mean, it's just a never-ending list. What's happening in Iran, what's happening in Ukraine, the transphobia, like there's just so much of it. And it's sometimes feels hard when you are reminded of the scale of the problem to be solved. And that doesn't happen often. Just kind of I have a fleeting moment of sometimes thinking like, shit, it's too big. But I really believe that, it'll take all of us to bring the wall down from different sides. We all have our part to play. And, I think what I'm learning is the importance of a support system, the complexity of feminism, the nuance and care that is required to be a white leader who is trying to be a feminist and trying to be a good feminist leader. And this idea of, and my friend Jen put this quote on LinkedIn. Jen's also a bonder who's brilliant. She was saying, I can endure the discomfort of being misunderstood, disliked and rejected as I evolve and grow on my own path. I thought that was really beautiful and feels like a nice summary of like the types of conversations I'm having with coaches and mentors, is like, as I'm stretching to this new level with Upfront, like sitting with the discomfort of what will they say, and what if it doesn't work, and what will he think, and what will she think, and what will they say. So it is a really good quote. Let me put it in the thing. Oh. And so I guess my first question is, how has this been? Because it's felt really different for me, like not having slides and like a kind of very prepared, like topic and story. You know, I wanted it to feel more like a conversation. So I would love to hear in the chat, like how this session has been for you. Maybe a key takeaway, that would be nice. Can you all share one thing you've taken away or you're taking with you after this conversation? And I guess, should I do more like this? That would be nice to hear your opinion on. Love the format. Owning your story. More like this. Okay, cool, good. Good, I met my own brief, so that's important. Sitting with the discomfort of raising your voice, that you can make mistakes and forgive yourself. If you're not getting rejected, you're not trying hard enough. Yes. Encouraged to move forward, working hard to understand my place in the conversation. +1, okay, beautiful. So do you have any questions? Is grace the same as love? What a question. I don't know. Is it? I think it's part of love. Self-love. Urgency for gender equality can harm people of colour. Yes, can't wait to get into grace at the conference. So Kim, can you share the conference link again for any of you who have not got your ticket yet? The good news is we still have tickets. If you buy your digital ticket, you get the replay for 60 days. But I wonder if there's any questions that you're kind of left with, things that you would like me to talk about next time, or maybe talk about in my newsletter or in other kind of the mediums that we share. Pop them in the chat. Again, I will go back through because I know there was questions coming in as I was going that I didn't get to them all. And I'm going to play a wee song, as is the upfront tradition. Let's see. And just thank you so much for being here. I have felt very